Hey, Ron here from Military Images Magazine. Thanks for joining me on the Civil War Research Trail. Today, we're going to New York City on May 14th, 1863. On this day, women packed into the Church of the Puritans for a unique convention. A glimpse across the spacious church hall revealed familiar faces. On the rostrum, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucy Stone, Ernestine L. Rose, and other leaders of the women's rights and abolitionist movements settled in for the day's events. A group of progressive Quakers filed into the first row of the pews and chatted, the benches behind them filled with other movers and shakers, some well known and others less so, who had traveled far and wide to unite under the banner of a new organization. At 10 o'clock, Susan B. Anthony gavelled the meeting to order. Standing on the stage, her voice filled the void created by the hush that had descended across the room. She said, "In the crisis of our country's destiny, it is the duty of every citizen to consider the peculiar blessings of a republican form of government and decide what sacrifices of wealth and life are demanded for its defense and preservation." With these words, 43-year-old Anthony ushered in the Women's National Loyal League. The league formed at a precarious moment. 2 years into the Civil War, the future of the Constitution appeared to be in free fall. The national armies faced stubborn resistance from their counterparts in the states in rebellion. Military successes were few and far between. The recent presidential proclamation of a limited abolition of slavery broadened the war's aims from a struggle to preserve the Union to a moral fight for freedom and liberty for all. Universal equality, once a radical fringe concept, flowed into the mainstream of thought and rippled across the land. In rural and urban communities across the northern states, the debate about free versus slave labor moved from progressive parlors into main streets. Fears that the great cultural disruption might tear apart and forever destroy the social fabric that blanketed the homeland were well founded. Doomsayers foretold the end of the federal government and, with it, the death of democracy. The Women's National Loyal League brought together the movements for women's equality and anti-slavery into a single political action group. One of the speakers during the two-day event was Angelina Grimké Weld, the daughter of a wealthy slaveholding South Carolina family who rebelled against the peculiar institution. Her extemporaneous words rocked the audience on the second day. After the convention ended, she wrote an address based on her remarks, and it was widely published in northern newspapers. Here it is. Address of the Women's National Loyal League to the soldiers of our second revolution. Angelina begins, "Brethren, 1,000 of your sisters and a convention representing the loyal women of the nation greet you with profound gratitude. Your struggles, sufferings, daring, heroic self-devotion, and sublime achievements, we exult in them all." Imagine her. Here she is with her family making this incredible speech. She continues, "To you, especially whose terms of service have expired or are soon to expire, we desire to speak of the shifting scenes now acting in the nation's tragedy. This war of slavery against freedom did not begin with the first shot at Sumter. It did not begin when the slaveocracy broke up the Charleston Convention in order to secure the election of Mr. Lincoln, and thus palm upon the Southern masses a false pretense for rebellion. It did not begin with the nullification in 1832, nor in the convention that framed the federal Constitution, nor yet in that which adopted the Articles of Confederation. But it began in 1620 when the Mayflower landed our fathers on Plymouth Rock, and the first slave ship landed its human cargo in Virginia. Then, for the first time, liberty and slavery stood face to face on this continent. From then till now, these antagonisms have struggled in incessant conflict. 2 years since the slaveocracy, Truth to their instincts of violence, after long and secret plotting, crowned their perfidy by perjury, by piratical seizures of government property that cost $100 million, and then burst into open rebellion. This war is not, as the South falsely pretends, a war of races, nor of sections, nor of political parties, but a war of principles, a war upon the working classes, whether white or black, a war against man the world over. In this war, the black man was the first victim, the working man of whatever color the next. And now, all who contend for the rights of labor, for free speech, free schools, free suffrage, and a free government, securing to all life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, are driven to do battle in defense of these, or to fall with them, victims of the same violence that for 2 centuries has held the black man a prisoner of war. While the South has waged this war against human rights, the North has stood by, holding the garments of those who were stoning liberty to death. It was in vain that a few at the North denounced the system and called the people to repentance. In vain did they point to the progress of the slave power and warn the people that their own liberties were being cloven down. The North still went on, throwing sop after sop to the Cerberus of slavery that hounded her through the wilderness of concession and compromise until the crash of Sumter taught her that with the slaveocracy, no rights are sacred. The government, attacked by assassins, was forced to fight for its own life. The progress of the war has proved that slavery is the lifeblood of the rebellion, hence the necessity of the president's proclamation of freedom to the slaves. The nation is in a death struggle. It must either become one vast slaveocracy of petty tyrants or wholly the land of the free. The traitors boast that they have swept from the national firmament 1/3 of its stars, but they have only darkened them with clouds, which the Son of Liberty will scatter, revealing behind them the eternal pillars of justice, emblazoned with liberty, equality, fraternity. Soldiers of this revolution, to your hands is committed the sacred duty of carrying out in these latter days the ideal of our fathers, which was to secure all life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and to every state a republican form of government. To break the power of this rebellion calls for every available force. You know how extensively black men are now being armed. Some regiments are already in the field. 20 more are now under drill. Will you, not in this hour of national peril, gratefully welcome the aid which they so eagerly proffer, to overthrow that slave power which has so long ruled the North, and now that you spurn its sway is bent on crushing you? Will you not abjure that vulgar hate which has conspired with slavery against liberty in our land, and thus roll from the sepulchre where they have buried it alive, the stone which has so long imprisoned their victim? The army of the North will thus become the angel of deliverance, rescuing the nation from the shifting sands of compromise and refounding it upon the rock of justice. Some of you have been mustered out of the service. Many more are soon to return to your homes. All hail to you, honor and gratitude for what you have done and suffered. Enough if you have only been fighting for the Union as it was. But is it enough if the work for which the war is now prosecuted is not accomplished? Your country needs your power of soldierly endurance and accomplishment, your hard-earned experience, your varied tact and trained skill, your practiced eye and hand. In a word, all that makes you veterans, ripe in the discipline and educated power. Raw recruits cannot fill your places. Brave men, your mission, though far advanced, is not accomplished. You will not, cannot abide at home while your brethren in arms carry victory and liberty down to the Gulf. With joy and admiration, we greet you on your homeward way, while your loved ones await your coming with mingled delight and pride, when, after a brief sojourn, you go back again, convoyed by the grateful acclaim and Godspeed of millions, to consummate at freedom's call her holy work, the mightiest of all time, And now, so near its end, with exultant shouts, your brothers in the field will hail your coming to share with them the glory of the final victory. It will be the victory of free government, sacred rights, justice, liberty, and law over the perfidies, perjuries, lying pretenses, and frantic revelries in innocent blood of the foulest national crime that ever reeked to heaven, the overthrow of the most atrocious, yet the meanest despotism that ever tortured the groaning earth. There you have it. Angelina Grimké and her powerful speech that appeared in northern newspapers in the spring of 1863. Until next time, we'll see you. Bye for now.